everyone, and welcome to The Presumption. I'm Sarah, joined by Jimmy.
Hey, Sarah. Hey, Matt.
Hey, what's up, guys? Happy holidays.
Yeah, it's like an extended holiday season, and, we were gone for a minute. We're back. We'll be gone again, but that's just the holidays. So today's really interesting because we're doing something really different. We're putting Jim in the guest chair. So it'll get even more interesting. He's too humble. He's obviously had a very long and colorful career.
Long is right. Long is right.
And sometimes things come up where in conversation someone brings up a reference to a case, or I read something and I'm like, what is this case? And it just is like one interesting story after another. But we picked out 3 really interesting cases of Jim's. We've got a cat murder. We've got a device that's supposed to be an amazing device, except the government thought it's fake. And then we've got a reverse sting operation on a hooker. Now I can think of these 3 cases having, some common denominator, but it's going to get dirty, so I'm going to leave that alone. But before I turn it over to Jim, and we sort of go through these cases one by one, of course, I cannot Jim's now the guest. So I needed another person to help me co-host with Matt. And decided to call upon some help. If I can get my...
While we're in the process of getting said mystery guest on the show, I just want to say, without getting too far ahead, just the teaser of the cat murder case. Is this really a story about somebody who murdered cats?
Yes.
And I just, this is rough.
I know, but okay.
Jim, are you a cat owner, a cat lover? Where do you fall on this?
So, I used to not like cats much. My son is a cat lover, and so we've had cats for like the last 15 to 20 years, and they do grow on me.
Look at my co-host.
What about how's your daughter feel about cats?
I don't know.
Hi, Dad. Did we surprise you?
Yeah. Hey, Hope. I am surprised. That's really shocking. That's funny.
I was like, either he's gonna kill me, or
it's gonna kill you. Yeah, I'm gonna kill you, but that's fine.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Have you got? So we missed Hope. She was coming here for Thanksgiving. We were going to Clemson, South Carolina game, and she and her husband came down with COVID, and so they couldn't come. And so I'm glad to see you, Hope.
No, it's good to see you too. And Donald Trump attended the game, so I obviously couldn't show my face there.
Oh my God! Right. Hope, can you put down your can you tilt down your camera a little bit so you have less headspace? There you go. Yeah.
I noticed both father and daughter have the bookcase look going on in the background. This is very fitting. I like it.
Trying your best.
So yeah, I heard Donald Trump was at the game. Anyway, yeah.
We are the reddest of states. So
you're what?
We're the reddest of states here in South Carolina.
Yeah, I get it. I have to defend him in a mock trial, against Lanny Davis on January 6th stuff. That's coming up in like 2 weeks. And I was like, I had a rehearsal this morning. I'm like, I was like, it is my honor to. Anyway, all right. So let me, of course, everyone now knows that Hope is Jim's daughter, but she's also an amazing lawyer. And so I just want to briefly introduce her. Hope Griffin is an experienced attorney who practices in Kaplan and Ernest's educational law section in Boulder, Colorado. Her practice includes a wide range of education-related legal matters, including special education, Title IX, Title VI, student discipline, and student equity matters. She began her career as a third-grade teacher in Colorado Springs as part of Teach for America, before attending the University of Colorado School of Law, where she was awarded Order of the Coif. When Hope isn't trying to improve our public education system, advocating for teachers and fighting for students with disabilities, she's chasing around her 1-year-old son, who is the cutest, or climbing Colorado's mountains with her husband. One of Hope's most cherished roles is being Jim's eldest daughter and biggest fan. Now, did you put that in there just because you knew I was going to read it off or what?
I tried my best. I really think this should be like a holiday themed episode. Jim's favorite things, Quadro Trackers, cats, his oldest daughter, talking about himself.
No, she did leave out the part that I have climbed some 14ers with her and survived those. And she left off the part that she was editor of the Law Review, associate editor.
It's one thing I didn't do. I wasn't smart enough. We saw those pictures, Jim. You shared those when we were talking about, I think it was something. It was the Title IX, right? No,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, we put those up anyway. All right, so Hope and I are going to grill you. Well, we're not going to grill you, but we're gonna prompt some fun stories. So the first one is this Quadro Tracker case, which was a big win for you, and I still can't tell. Matt, do we have a picture of this device thingy?
Yeah, this looks like my worst nightmare at the dentist office or something.
There you go.
What is that?
That's the Quadro Tracker.
Right. So I was like, is this thing for real? Is it BS? Like, I mean, you took the case to trial and your client was acquitted, which is a big deal and why we want to talk about this. But it is a positive molecular locator, also known as like a detection device. And it was sold by Quadro Corporation. That's where the name comes from, which is was located in South Carolina between 93 and 96. Around 1,000 of them were sold to police departments and school districts around the U.S. on the basis that they would detect hidden drugs, explosives, weapons, and lost golf balls. And I was like thinking maybe that's why you got involved in the case. But anyway, in 96, the FBI declared it to be fake and obtained a permanent injunction barring the device from being manufactured or sold. Yeah, so you represented one of 3 defendants named Ray Fisk. Tell us about your client, the charges, the defenses, and what led you to this big win.
Sure. So Ray and his buddy Wade Quattlebaum, they were treasure hunters in South Carolina, and in South Carolina we had the Revolutionary War and we had the Civil War, and there are a lot of artifacts from those wars found in the waters and the swamps and the woods of South Carolina. And so there's a whole treasure hunting industry, and they have developed different devices, not just metal detectors, but some other devices that they use out when they're treasure hunting. Well, these guys developed what they thought was and genuinely believed to be was a device that would find honestly just about anything. And their theory was that everything in the universe has a unique molecular structure, every person and every organic matter. So, and that they believe they had found a way to capture the molecular structure of whatever you want to look for. And actually DEA licensed them to buy marijuana, buy cocaine, so that they could test it and try to come up with a method to find, substances like cocaine and marijuana. And they really did market it as if it would replace a drug dog. And it went, it sold like hotcakes. I mean, they sold them to law enforcement agencies around the country. They sold them school districts around the country. And basically the device was not electric. It looked like, and people who are not watching via YouTube, I try to explain it. It's like you had a plastic pistol handle with a radio antenna on the pendulum at the end pointing horizontal, and that it was not electric. but it ran off static electricity, and that was their theory. And so you had to walk and breathe, and as you walk and breathe, static electricity would build up. It would oscillate a chip inside the device. You could have the chip in the handle, or you could have if you wanted to spend, for the Primo model, and you could pay $8,000 and get one that would go on your hip, and then you would put different type chips in there, and as you walk along, and this antenna would swing in the direction of whatever you're looking for, and then you would have to go in a different direction, and you would triangulate down to where it was, and that was the device, and that was how it was operating, and that's how
Jim. They got your client, and the other defendants got a license from the DEA.
Yeah, to test. So they lawfully could buy marijuana, lawfully could buy cocaine, and to test, and so they did, and they developed these models, and honestly, they had a lot of success. There was a lot of letters written in of people saying, "I used it. I found, it works for us, etc." And then as the thing was catching on, there was a FBI agent in Beaumont, Texas, who in the county of Beaumont had purchased these for the law enforcement offices, and they were doing a display in the county courthouse, and the guy couldn't make it work, and so then the FBI agent took it down to the metal detector and ran it through, and sure enough, they didn't find anything in there, and he concluded right then it was a hoax, it was a fake, and they opened a case, and they started investigating. And then they would send these devices they sent them to the Sandia National Lab in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And they had these nuclear physicists, and they put them in they would put them in like this, it wasn't zero gravity room, but it was a room that had basically, I forgot what they called it, but then they would shot it with gamma rays and seeing what it did. I mean, just the most sophisticated testing techniques that our country had at the time. They fired it on this Quadro Tracker, and they concluded it was fake, and they got a search warrant. The FBI got a search warrant and went into Hardyville, South Carolina, where their plant was, and it was a abandoned gymnasium, and that they had purchased, and where they were manufacturing these Quadro Trackers, and as they executed the search warrant, my client Ray Fisk said, if you promise not to tell the world how we do this, I will show you how we make one. And the guy promised. He lied, because it wasn't soon after that. It was on. They sent a national wire out about what had just happened. But so Ray, they had a model they called, where you would put a little capsule. You'd put it in your dog's collar. So if the dog runs off in the woods, or hunting dog, you can find it. You'd put the little capsule on heavy equipment in case it got stolen. You'd find it. And in fact, my client and his family members had implanted a little bug capsule in there through dental work in case they got kidnapped. I mean, wow, seriously, no lie. Seriously, no lie.
Hope, be honest, was your dad, while he was trying this case, was he also testing the technology out in the home? Make sure all the boyfriends go through the tests,
Everyone had like a right molar that was actually one of these capsules.
I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Big tracker.
Yeah, not quite. But so Ray's going to tell the FBI agent how to make a bug, and so then Ray goes to the freezer in the kitchen area of this old gymnasium, pulls out some tweezers and a frozen and a bag full of bugs. I mean bugs, like ants. And so he takes tweezers, takes an ant, put it on the copy machine, closes the copy machine, pushes the button. The copy machine then prints out a black piece of Xerox paper, black, so you couldn't see what was on it. Ray then cuts out the center where apparently the bug image was transposed on the paper, and then laminates it on a little chip, slides it into the Quadro Tracker handle, and where the chip would go. And there you have the one end of the combination. Then he would take the ant that was on the face of the copy machine and put it in a little capsule and put super glue and glued it up. And then that was the bug. And so you would put that bug. And so the chip had the molecular structure of that ant, and you had that bug anywhere. And so the FBI agent said, when I saw that, I knew it was a fraud. And
when your client did this, obviously he was not represented, right?
No, he was not represented. Didn't call anybody.
Right. I couldn't imagine you telling him, could you please, provide a step-by-step.
So right then and there, it was like, this is a hoax. They went and they got a national injunction. It became national news. It was a big story. It was on World News Tonight, Ted Koppel's show. They did a lot of all this was before documentaries, right? So, but they did a lot of news magazine shows on it, and it became like, we're the laughing stock. And after they got an injunction, they indicted these guys out in Beaumont, Texas, and so they're good old boys from South Carolina. And I had been out of the U.S. Attorney's office for probably about a few years, not long, and so we got hired to go out and defend them in Beaumont, Texas. And as we're getting ready, we were then inundated by people who believed in this device, and it was unbelievable. I mean, it was, and we got letters from different people about the successes that they had, and so it was clear to us that there was more to it than what these experts at the Sandista National Lab had come up. And so, I took it around to some experts, and they were like, sort of, patting me on the back, good luck, but I don't understand how it works. But then one of the things that we learned through this is there's a lot of things in the universe that people don't really understand how it works. And one of the things that we used in the trial, that for all these experts, they had 3 nationally recognized experts testify, and not a single one of them could tell you how a homing pigeon or a carrier pigeon or messenger pigeon, whatever you call it, how you can take that pigeon 1,000 miles and let him go, and how he or she ends up back at the place where he started from. They don't know, but they know it happened. So it was like, science doesn't know everything.
Right.
And it turns out that in the beak of a homing pigeon or in the skull, there's properties called magnetite, which is the same property that is used in a lot of toner. And so, I'm not saying that we had valid science behind it, but every expert had to say homing pigeons work on some magnetic navigation system. They have magnetite and magnetites and toners. And then we, in the defense, we had people testify. We started out, our first witness was a golf coach, and he could take this golf ball finder and he could find golf balls on a golf course. He and his family would put golf balls under solo cups and put them on a green, like a putting green, and then they would walk by and try to figure out which solo cups had the golf ball in them, and he could do it. Some of his family members couldn't do it as well as he could, and so that was our first witness. Interestingly, we had the government put Ron on the witness stand. I'm sure.
Who's Ron?
Ron, RON. So the older viewers will know about Ronco. Ronco was, a late night channel where you would buy Ginzu knives and all this other stuff sold by Ronco. So the guy who started Ronco, he marketed the golf ball finder on his infomercial channel, and he got a lot of returns, and so they brought him up. So to contradict Ronco, we had a golf coach, and then we had a Texas Ranger testify, and he testified. He's going down a road, interstate, and he passed a truck, and he's got this Quadro Tracker in his hand, and as soon as he passes this truck, it swings over and points at the truck. So he pulls the truck over, and he says, "Sir, I've got this new device that I have, and it just hit on you, and it's telling me you have marijuana in the car, in your truck. And if you give me the marijuana, I will not charge you." So the guy goes in behind his pickup truck and by the seat of his pickup truck, pulls out a bag of marijuana, hands it to this Texas Ranger, and off they go. And the Texas Ranger testified about that at the trial. That was the first criminal case I had a Texas Ranger or any law enforcement testify on my behalf. But on cross-examination, you got to give the AUSA credit. He said, "Now, Mr. Texas Ranger, what did the guy look like in that pickup truck?" And the Texas Ranger said, "A doper." That was kind of it, that you would put it in the hands of a law enforcement officer, and he would, and then if you leaned it to one side or the other, the antenna would swing around, and then, oh my gosh, we had a woman from Atlanta who sold these, and one of the things that she would do to train and stay proficient with the Quadro Tracker is she would go to a funeral home. This is true, and she testified about it. She would go to a funeral home. She would get hair from a deceased, and then she would wait a few days, and then she would travel around Atlanta with a Quadro Tracker in her hand, and she would put the hair from the deceased in the device, and that she would be able to find where that person was buried. She testified about that.
Wow.
And then our very last witness was an FBI agent who was retired, who was in marketing this Quadro Tracker. And he says, the last question to him from us was, "Have you been defrauded?" And he goes, "Yes, I have." And he said, "By whom?" He said, "By the FBI and the federal government."
Mic drop. But your closing, I've heard about your closing and not from you. Yeah,
well, tell it, Hope. I want to hear Hope's version of my closing.
Well, I need to confirm this is the right case, but I'm pretty sure. So when my dad would travel for work, he'd often bring back souvenirs for us. So we went to Vegas, and he brought us this magic card deck, which would very much align with the Quadro Tracker these days. And also he brought my sister a slot machine, pencil sharpener that later got stolen. But on this day, Mary Lewis had just learned about Texas in school, and so she said, "Dad, can you bring me back something big from Texas? Because everything's bigger in Texas." I think we got bolo ties, but Dad, did you work that into your closing argument, or was that a different Texas case?
I absolutely did. We're in trial for 2 weeks, and I gave my closing, and honestly, we had this judge who was appointed by President John F. Kennedy. His name was Judge Fisher, and he was 93 at the time, and he gave both sides 20 minutes for closing, and we were like, and there are 3 defendants. I'm like, "Judge Fisher, I need at least 30 minutes myself." He goes, "Y'all got 20 minutes. And so the first guy that gets up there, so, he was appointed. And I promise you, it was just like out of the scene from My Cousin Vinny. I mean, he's stuttering. He can't say much. And then, and he burns up about 5 minutes of my time. And then the second guy who was representing Wade Qualabong gets up, and this was a big Texan, big guy, big cowboy hat. He'd come to court in every day, and he stood up and he said, "I know you good people of the Eastern District of Texas are fair-minded people, and here's what I'm asking you to do: listen to this young man from South Carolina." And he says, and then I get up, and then that's exactly what I said, Hope. I said, y'all spent 2 weeks here. You giving us your time, and we appreciate it. Y'all been away from your families. I know what it means. When I left South Carolina to come out here, I dropped my daughter off at kindergarten, and I told her I was going to be in Texas and bring her back. What would she like? She says, "I want something big." I go, "Why do you want something big?" She says, "Well, I saw on Busy Town that everything's big in Texas." And I told the jury, I said, "In Texas, you have such a reputation. And that is one of the things. Everything's big in Texas. But another thing, you're the Lone Star State, and you don't need the federal government coming in here and telling you what your county sheriff's department can buy and not buy. They can do it themselves." And so that and the conventional wisdom was the earth was flat, and then it was challenged. The earth was round, and, so we don't know everything. So that was really about the two things I could get out of my mouth before Judge Fisher hooked me from my closing argument was.
Would you bring back for Mary Lewis?
Yeah, I don't know. I think bolo ties. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
I think
okay,
that's
so
right.
the next case. I love this case.
Well, let me tell one last story about that case, because so the jury is out for the first day. The jury's out after they get the closing, and they're not returning a verdict. And they did things differently then. And the judge would send a law clerk in to try to see what the score was. And the law clerk came back and said to us, wink, wink, nod, nod, y'all are in good shape. That's all he would say. Y'all are in good shape. And so the judge sent the jury home, and then we went out and prematurely celebrated. And then we were.
This sounds like Becky Hill, this law clerk.
We came in the next day and
take an early vote. What?
Okay. We came in the next day, and so they're grinding away and all day, and it gets the middle of the afternoon, and Judge Fisher says he's going to declare a mistrial, and then the U.S. Attorney's Office didn't want him to declare a mistrial, and so they sent the law clerk in again and asked, do you want to declare a mistrial or you want to continue working? And the jury said, we want to come back tomorrow, and we will see the exhibits, and we think we can get a verdict tomorrow. And so then we went out and celebrated all over again. So after 2 nights of celebration, we go into court, and the jury wanted to see the exhibits. And in Texas, apparently, and the jury doesn't get the exhibits unless they ask for the exhibits. And so they asked for the exhibits. I go in the courtroom, and all the government's exhibits are in the jury room. All the defense exhibits are in the courtroom. I'm like, Judge Fisher, what's going on here? And Judge, okay, we'll send your exhibits back. And then I was really frustrated, because I thought, some shenanigans were going on. And then the court reporter called me over, and he says, you got nothing to worry about. And he says, look out the window. And I looked out the window, and there were like about 3 or 4 pickup trucks with bass boats behind them. And he says, here's what you need to know. Most everybody in Beaumont works at the oil refinery. And the deal at the oil refinery is, if you are in jury duty past noon on Friday, you don't have to go to work. So he said, you're gonna get a knock on the door at 12:01. And sure enough, 12:01, jury knocks on the door, and they had a defense verdict. And so,
yeah, but you have a lot of shenanigans in your cases. I don't know.
They just want to stretch it out so they could go fishing. That's what that was about.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Can we go on to the next one?
Sure.
My favorite one. Well, actually, the next 2 are my favorite ones. I can't really pick. So this is, I call it the cat case, but it's state of South Carolina versus Grover.
I think I misread your note. I thought you said it was about a killer cat, not a cat killer. So this was the graphic I found. Sorry.
That's the cat murder. So Rye was convicted of murder for killing a cat killer who was actually a cop or some sort of a police deputy.
So someone killed a cat killer. Is that correct?
Correct. So okay. Hold on. So Jim is going to fill in the details, but I'm kind of obsessed with this. So the South Carolina Supreme Court reversed the murder conviction of your client, and then you represented him on retrial, and he was acquitted. Again, it's a huge win. And I have some questions for Hope as well. But so Rye.
There it is. Yeah, Hope has that up. Yep.
Yeah, Rye, Jim's client, owned a property where he stored his tools and equipment for his business. Sometimes he slept there, but more importantly, he had a bunch of stray cats that he sort of kept on his property. And between March and August of 2004, Rye, Jim's client, had a lot of issues with trespassers that would come onto his property. There were like 3 trespassers, the neighbor and someone else, and then also this like police deputy guy, this cop guy. And they would just come on the property and start shooting Rye's cats. And so I'm going to let Jim tell the story, but the cat shooter, the cat killer who gets shot at by Rye, is the cop. So if you hear
Right.
cop, you know which trespasser it is. Okay, Jim, tell us the whole story.
Yeah, so Grover I was a guy who his family had a farmhouse and some land in the rural part of Richland County, which is the county where Columbia, South Carolina is. So it's a pretty urban county, except it's a sprawling county, and he would go out there and hunt some, but mainly he had a heating and air business, and he stored his heating and air equipment out there for for supplies and things. And he was a cat lover, and Grover was known, if you had found a stray cat, that you would, you give him to Grover, and Grover would take him out to his farm, and he would feed them. So he had really a herd of cats. I mean, probably 30 cats out there, and he would go out there every day or every other day and feed them. And the neighbor, when you say neighbor in this rural part of South Carolina, I mean, the neighbor's house was probably a half a mile away, but it was a rental house, and a new family had moved in, a mother and her adult son, and the adult son would come over, and he thought they were just feral cats, and he would just take target practice at the cats and would shoot and kill them and leave them dead. And Grover would show up, and there'd be a dead cat here, a dead cat there, and then he would call Richland County, and they would send a deputy out, and they'd write up a report, cat dead, cat shot, and it went on for months. And then I'm not sure about the months of the year, Sarah, because I do know the day of the shooting where this off-duty Beaufort County Sheriff's deputy lost his life was there was a hurricane that had come through. The Beaufort County Sheriff's deputy's wife, her mother and brother lived in the neighboring property. And so she evacuated to that neighboring property. And then when the Beaufort County Sheriff's deputy had finished his patrol duties, he came to Richland County to wait out the hurricane or the tropical storm or whatever it was. And then so the deputy, who would be the son-in-law and brother-in-law of the brother-in-law of the kid who was coming over shooting the cats, he comes over with his brother-in-law, and he's got an AR-15, and they start shooting cats. Grover pulls up, and he sees a dead cat. Cat is warm blood. He doesn't have a cell phone. He goes to his cousin's house down the street. He calls Richland County, and he is very agitated, and he says, "You better get out of here fast, or something bad might happen." And then Grover gets back in his truck, and he goes to the property, and as soon as he pulls up, he hears a shotgun blast or a gun blast. And so he grabs a rifle out of the back of his truck, and he charges off into his property, and he rounds a tree, and he's confronted by this off-duty Beaufort County Sheriff's deputy with an AR-15 pointing at Grover, and Grover shoots him, kills him dead. And the first trial, he goes to trial, he's convicted of murder. And the issue and that it was overturned on was, in order to use deadly force in a self-defense situation, the law is generally you have a duty to retreat. And if you can't retreat, then you can use deadly force. But you don't have a duty to retreat in your own home. That's called the Castle Doctrine. And now it's been codified in statute. And so you don't have a duty to retreat in your own home. And so the question is, Grover is in the yard of his home. Did he have a duty to retreat? And the Supreme Court reversed, saying he does not have a duty to retreat. And so,
was this an instruction that wasn't given, or like?
Yeah, well, no, it was the first trial. The judge instructed the jury that Grover had a duty to retreat. Oh, and so if he didn't retreat, and he shoots to kill, he's guilty of murder.
So it was the wrong instruction.
Yeah, it was
erroneous.
Erroneous instruction.
Yeah,
and so we go back to the retrial, and they hired new lawyers, and they hired a guy older. I say older. I mean, he's probably a little bit older than me at the time, which I thought was old then. But he was renting space for me, and he says he's got this case, and it's up, for retrial on a murder. And I said, his name's Dennis Bolt, a great lawyer. He's totally retired now and living the good life, taking photos of stuff, traveling all over the world. But so Dennis says, I think it's very defensible, Jim, but, I don't have the staff here to do it. And I just want, your help. And he told me how much money Grover had to hire another lawyer. I said, Dennis, I can't do that. I mean, it's a murder case. It's going to be 2 weeks. And, I've never tried a murder case. He said, I know I've tried a lot of murder cases, but, you know how to try cases and it'll be a lot of fun. I said, Dennis, I'll go broke. He said, well, I got to tell you, I got a call from Court TV today, and they're planning on covering the trial. And I said, okay, I'll do it. Right, I'll do it. So that was my first Court TV case, and we get in it. And,
was that the first time you're on TV?
I've been on TV before, but hell, I was on TV on the Quadro Tracker case, but it's the first time the cameras in the courtroom for sure.
Oh, okay, okay.
And we didn't just win on the jury instruction because one of the significant facts at the first trial was the brother-in-law says he saw the shooting. He said that the off-duty Beaufort County Sheriff's deputy dropped his gun, stepped back a few steps, and then Grover executed him, shot him in cold blood. And sure enough, the police report and everything showed that the AR-15 was about 16 feet away from the body when it was found. And that was a problem. That was a huge problem for Grover's story was he pointed the gun at me. I rounded the tree. He's got it pointed at me. I got a gun pointed at him. I'm not going to wait to see if he shoots me first. But the gun was so far from the body, we're trying to come up with theories as how that could have happened. Maybe the guy crawled a little bit afterwards. And Dennis Bolt kept saying, that we had never, and the first lawyer and no one had ever gotten what we call a run report, the ambulance run report. It's the EMS incident report or the EMS medical record of the run. And Dennis kept saying, do we have the run report yet? Do we have the run report? I said, Dennis, we're getting it. And I sent EMS a subpoena. They didn't like the way it was worded or who we served it on or what have you. And so we went round and round with Richland County EMS to get the run report. We are picking the jury. We're picking the jury, and a runner comes into the courtroom and hands me the run report. And Dennis is arguing something with the judge, and I'm looking at the run report, and it says body laying supine, laying flat, gun within 3 feet of the body. 3 feet. 3 feet, not 16 feet. So the EMS guy moved the gun, and it was never found out during the first trial. And that fact alone would make all the difference in the world. We had a crime scene forensic expert out of Alabama who was just, awesome, and he did angles of and we proved that the son-in-law could not see what he claimed he saw, through.
But I think the instruction was really important too, Jim. No,
hugely important.
Yeah,
hugely important. Now I got to tell you, Court TV during the trial says, can we talk to your client? I go, no, you can't talk to my client, not until the trial's over. And I said, okay, and they said they wouldn't do it. Well, that's trial. It aired that time, but they would replay it frequently, and they don't do it anymore because it's so long ago. But they would replay it, maybe once a year. And the first time they replayed it, I see, like during the weekend between the first and second weeks, Grover is out there on his property. He had some cutouts of people where angles were and cats were dead. He showed that to us. It was kind of creepy. Well, he's on Court TV walking these people through the crime scene. During the middle of the damn trial, my client goes out to his property with Court TV cameras and gives him a reenactment. Honestly. And then after, and I would know every time that trial was being shown on Court TV because we would get little old ladies calling up wanting to know how they could send money to Grover Rye because Grover says that he had spent $500,000, defending the case, and he's broke. Well, Grover's insurance company paid the family, I think, $500,000. But so, and people then thought I got $500,000 for that trial, which was nuts.
So I see this pattern here, Jim. not getting paid, shenanigans in the trial, a law clerk or a court clerk messing with the jury.
Yeah, people perceiving you getting paid and you're not getting paid.
That's right. Hey, as long as it's on television, why not? You know, that's
that photo that Matt put up earlier, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, the screenshot of the TV was taken by Hope on her glittery pink BlackBerry. Hope, I don't know.
I think it was lacking glitter, but it was definitely a pink BlackBerry. I was interning with Congressman Clyburn at the time, and we were working inside the Capitol because he was the majority whip, and so we were live streaming court TV every day. So that was where that grainy photo came from. I was really proud to say, like, that's my dad on TV defending cats and the cat, defending the guy who killed the cat murderer. Another fun fact about my dad is that he loves animals. I think I jumped in when you guys were talking about cats earlier, but I adopted or bought a cat off the side of the road my freshman year of college, and my
that story keeps changing. Go ahead.
I said rescued. You can rescue animals lots of different ways, Dad. So I had this cat in my room, and I thought it was only a matter of time before we were all going to get kicked out. So I called my dad up and I said, can you please take this beautiful cat? He needs a home, or she needs a home. And my dad adopted the cat and gave that cat the best home. I think my dad even bought a cat stroller. If you've never heard of those. He's that cat around in a stroller.
It's like Legally Blonde showing up. She's got this pink carrying case for this cat with a pink collar on, and the cat's name is Chanel.
I was going to leave that part out of the story.
And then we take the cat to the vet to get, checked up, and the vet says, "What's your cat's name?" I said, "Chanel." And he goes, "Well, that's a funny name for a boy cat." And so then my son renamed.
What was
Chanel
the pronoun?
Tom. So Chanel to Tom.
It's hard to tell.
Tom was a good cat.
I'm also curious to hear, while we have Hope here, like, what was your perspective growing up when your dad was working these high profile cases or these crazy cases? Little background: my dad was a medical malpractice attorney, and he would settle most cases, but whenever he took stuff to court, our living room and our dining room just became like a battle zone with the most horrific pictures from, medical procedures gone wrong. It was traumatizing for me. So I wonder if you had anything similar, or did your dad keep work at work?
He did a good job of keeping work at work, but I would say Christmas this past year, he was bringing in what he thought to be a present, and then he realized it was like a body dummy for the Murdoch trial, and put that right back in the garage. That was the most recent version. He was like, "This is not a present. It's quite heavy and large, but it's not a present."
Yeah, I've heard he hijacks presents too. Like, takes presents that are meant for someone and says they're from him, as opposed to the person that gave the present.
No, that's called regifting, Sarah. We regift.
No, not regifting, Jim. Like, for example, I buy a present for Matt. And I say, "Hey, Jim, give this to Matt." You give it to Matt, but you say it's from you, not me.
Oh, so that bottle of scotch was from you, Sarah?
That was his game plan. That's his Christmas game plan this year.
Right.
I'm getting off topic, but since you brought that up, Matt, I'm holding in my hand a quill pen that you get when you argue at the U.S. Supreme Court. And I had a case up at the U.S. Supreme Court, and these are on the desk for counsel, and you take them, and they're yours. So Hope is, I think, 8th grade, and she's doing a monologue for Elijah Pinckney or some strong woman for woman history. I don't know what it was, but she's doing a monologue at school, and she says, "Dad, I need to get a quill pen." And I said, "Do I have the quill pen for you? I just got one from the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm going to bring it to you." I show up. I bring this quill pen. I'm so proud of it. I got it from the U.S. Supreme Court. My daughter's going to give a monologue at school with a pen from the U.S. Supreme Court. She looks at it. She says, "Dad, that looks just like the one I got at Joann's," which is a arts and crafts store. And sure enough, it looks just like the one that got at Joann's. So, but I have it here. It's in my trophy case.
Amazing.
At some point, the love of cats. I mean, I guess the love of cats extends to horses and all animals and stuff for Jim. But Hope, what was the story about using animals as a way to get you to not date or something?
Yeah, well, it's always worth a try. My dad was a big horse guy too. He had a horse growing up, and so his horse was named Jake. And every night he would tell us a story about Jake going to the moon, Jake probably going to trial. And so in high school, we were all interested in horses, and my dad thought, oh, what a great idea. I'll buy them a horse so they can ride instead of being distracted by boys or trying to date boys. But instead it backfired in his face. So we started dating the guys who worked at the barn, which is probably like not how he thought this plan would play out, but that's exactly what happened. So
that was, that didn't pan out the way I planned.
So this next one is my second favorite, is the prostitute blackmail case, which is a reverse sting operation that Jim was behind using his former FBI investigator working for the defense. Obviously, any case that has sex and money in it is fun and salacious, and you guys, I'm sure, all want to know about it. And it's also really fun for us. We're not going to lie. Those cases are pretty fun. So, most of you probably know what a sting operation is. I call it a fraud committed by an undercover cop. I feel like, there should be a defense of temptation. You see it a lot where the cop is like the undercover John going up to the prostitute. And then of course she's like, wheeling and dealing, and then she gets arrested. This was a reverse sting operation. So Jim, tell us how this was a reverse sting operation, who your client was, and like what happened.
Yeah. Well, so I used to teach this course. Law students pass the bar, and before they can practice law, they had to go through this course called Bridge the Gap between law school and practicing law. And I was an instructor for years and years. They don't do that anymore, but I use this as an example of, if some lawyer is referring you a case with a client who has money, you need to ask why, because this guy went in to see Dick Harpootlian, and Dick calls me up, and I'm practicing law down the street, 2 doors down on Main Street. And he says, Jim, I got this guy. He's got plenty of money. He's got a problem. I don't think I can help him. I think you can. And, I needed money at the time. And so the guy comes up, and what was going on is he had met this prostitute at a brothel in his part of the state. And there was a pretty famous brothel that doesn't exist anymore. It hadn't existed in probably 15, 20 years, but it was, it was well known to have judges, politicians, law enforcement people were customers of this brothel. And this person, who is pretty successful, I'm not going to give his occupation, he fell in love with this prostitute, and he bought a rental house, and he put her and her child up in this rental house. And because this prostitute's husband was in prison, and then the husband gets out of prison and reaches out to my client. I'm going to call him John because that's what prostitutes call the guy. So reached out to John and says, you've been sleeping with my wife. You've got her put up in a house. So you need to pay me $50,000 or I'm going to tell your wife. And so that was the guy's problem, right? That's his problem. And so he comes to me after Dick wouldn't send him down the street.
Why wouldn't Dick take the case? Did you ever find out?
Well, I think you're about to find out. I don't know. I
let the man tell a story, Sarah.
I contacted the guy who had just retired from the FBI, who was doing private eye work, and I said, I said to him, this is a situation. I don't know what to do. Maybe you can do it. He goes, I know exactly what to do. We'll just do a reverse sting operation on this guy. I said, okay. And so my investigator goes with John, the client, to North Carolina, so to make it across state lines, and they record phone calls of this guy, blackmailing my client for $50,000. And then we make an arrangement on this reverse sting. The husband thinks that my client's going to deliver $50,000. They set it up to take place at the brothel owner's farmhouse, and he had a party house behind his house. And so the prostitute and her husband are at the party house behind the brothel owner's house. And all this is out in the country of South Carolina. And then a couple of miles down the road, there's this country store, as country as you can get, on a 2-lane road and a country store. And so the plan was for the brothel owner to drive to the country store, get $50,000 in cash from my client in a bag, and take it to the brothel owner, to the prostitute and her husband. And that was it. Well, that was not our plan. Our plan was that our off-duty retired FBI agent was going to, instead of the brothel owner taking $50,000 back, the FBI agent's going to get in the truck and go back and tell the husband, we got tapes, you're done, you're going back to prison, this is violating your probation or parole, and cut it out. And so that was the plan. And that, and so we have a big meet with a client in a small town as we're getting ready to go to this country store. My client shows up. He looks like a major league baseball umpire. He's got under his shirt a Army surplus bulletproof vest is about 4 inches thick, and so we're like this restaurant, and he's got a bulletproof vest on. And then before we go over there, we pull her, and then my guy dresses up like Rambo. He gets black stuff all over his face. And then and all I have is my bar license, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose that day. I'm pretty sure I was losing my bar license that day, because this is not nothing I learned in law school. And so we go to this country store, and sure enough, the brothel owner comes up in a truck. My guy, Tommy, the FBI agent, jumps in the truck and says, and I'm not sure how loud he said former, but he said, I'm a former FBI agent. Maybe the guy only heard FBI and maybe didn't hear former, but they get in the car. They go back to the party house. Tommy gets out, talks to the husband. The husband is shitting all over himself, shit himself. I mean, I don't know if he actually did, but he was shaking, afraid, nervous. And so then Tommy gets back in the truck with the brothel owner, and they come back to the country store. Tommy gets out. He talks to me and the client. He says, you've got nothing to worry about with the husband. He is so scared, nothing's going to happen. But he said, Mr. Client, John, whatever his name was, she is so mad at you. She is so mad at you. And about that time, we see this little Datsun pickup truck come with dust coming up and just hauling ass down this country road coming up to the store. And she gets out and she goes up to our John, if you will, and she starts screaming at him and says, I can't believe you double crossed me after all those BJs I gave you without a rubber and all this other stuff. I mean, so then Tommy, the FBI agent, who can sweet talk anybody, he was over there trying to calm everything down, and it was like, so that is the story of the reverse sting operation.
What's the fee? What kind of a fee do you charge for that? Because that's like, it's not really about. I
have no idea what he had plenty of money. I can't remember what we charged him,
but to him, it's worth a hell of a lot. Obviously, the value of what he gets, except it's not really based on.
His wife never found out. I guess they live happily ever. I don't even know if he's
until this podcast. She just heard it.
Yeah, exactly. John.
Mrs. John.
There's another lesson along the lines of the red flag you were talking about, which is interesting for people to know, which is when clients come to us and they've had multiple lawyers, not one that they weren't happy with and whatnot, but when they've been through, every so often I get people that've been through a lot of really good lawyers in town, and I go, why so many, why, and it's, often they do have the money but I've turned away sometimes those clients because it seems like a headache. It usually turns out to be a headache.
No doubt about that.
And they're not happy. Yeah. No matter what you do for them. So Hope is serving tea, of course.
I'm trying.
Yeah. Tell me, Hope, about your summer. It seems like the summer of 2007 or 8. was really kind of like a hot summer to be in Jim's office where you and Mary Lewis were working as office assistants. There's some interesting things that happened. I think will be fun for people to hear.
Yeah, I know it was a great time. I was telling Sarah earlier, it was the cushiest job you could ever get. My dad would pick us up at 8:00, and we told him as soon as he picked us up in the car, we were on the clock. So we were on the clock from the time he drove us from our house until he dropped us off at the end of the day. We told him what music we were going to listen to in the car. We got to the office. His office assistant was on leave that summer, I think. And so we sat at the front desk, 2 chairs, 1 desk, 1 computer. We have to rock, paper, scissors over who would answer the phone. That was the most popular job. Another great part about that position is that we would also stay on the clock through lunch, and we'd also be able to convince my dad to take us out to lunch. So we were getting essentially double paid. We had a lot of free lunches at the gourmet shop in Groucho's, and it was a great summer. But picking up the phone calls.
Is that the summer that y'all designed a T-shirt for our summer vacation? I think that was the most productive thing you did all summer, right?
That's what you think. I think we took a lot of good things away that summer. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we designed a T-shirt.
Yeah,
we did a lot of printing. The worst part was having to pick up the mail. We had to walk like half a block in the summer heat to go get mail from the post office. And Columbia is known as like the devil's armpit in the summer because it's oppressively hot and humid. But so the phone calls, one time we got a phone call from Mr. Benjamin Dover, Ben Dover. And I said, all right, Mr. Ben Dover, Mr. Griffin is not available right now. Can I take your number? He'll call you back. And he said, he'll know who to call. And I said, okay, Mr. Dover. And so I walked into my dad's office and I said, Dad, some guy named Mr. Ben Dover called. And he looked at me and he said, what are you talking about? I said, I don't know. The guy said you would know the number to call. And he picked up the phone. He called Dick Harpootlian and said, Dick, you need to stop messing with my girls. So he pulled.
Wait, I thought that was a jail call. Was that not?
No.
No, that's Harpootlian. He's always, bend over.
Yeah.
Bend over.
No, the first jail calls came in from a guy named Milton. And I don't know who Milton is or what he did, but we were really young and we would get these collect calls on our house phone and it would say, this is a collect call from Richland County Jail, press 1 to accept. And we would panic and say, we don't want to answer that call. And eventually my dad had to counsel us to press number 1 and go find him wherever he was in the house. But we would often leave Milton hanging and forget to go tell my dad he was on the line. So I'm sure we incurred a lot of phone call costs for Mr. Milton. Another great time during that summer is my dad was the representative of James Brown's estate. And so we had one of James Brown's children or reported children calling often, nearly every day. She wanted to know, Rhonda, that was her name. She wanted to know how the estate was shaking out, what was her share. She called the Dr. Phil show. She got the Dr. Phil show involved. So the Dr. Phil show was calling to figure out if Rhonda was going to take a DNA test or not. She also had this brilliant idea to have a show kind of like Survivor, where all of these other people who were claiming to be James Brown's children would go on this island and they would take a DNA test every day or so and vote people off the island based on their DNA results.
Yeah,
it was a little ahead of its time. That show would sell.
Rhonda was on it. Yeah, DNA Island is what she wanted to call it.
You know what? I'm working for a production company right now. I'm pitching that next week. DNA Island. I love it.
DNA Island.
That's definitely HBO appropriate, I think. Yeah. So it was a busy summer. It was a fun summer working at my dad's office.
Was your dad's practice and just watching him growing up, is that what kind of led you to want to go into law yourself, or is that sort of its own journey, and how did that come together?
Well, both. I think my dad obviously gets a lot of attention, but my mom is also an amazing attorney too. And so I watched both of them growing up and thought about how neat it was to have parents as attorneys. I was proud to say that I had both my parents were attorneys. A lot of people could say their dad is an attorney, but I got to say my mom and my dad are attorneys. And so I was always interested in law school. I just didn't know if that was the path for me. I wanted to do something different too. So I applied. At the end of my senior year, I started taking the LSAT and applying to colleges. And simultaneously, I was referred to Teach for America and asked to apply to that program. And I was accepted. I kind of made this pact with the universe. And I said, if I don't get Colorado elementary school, then I'm not going. I'm going to law school, which was probably going to be South Carolina. And that's exactly what happened. I was placed in Colorado Springs. And told I was going to be a 3rd or 4th grade teacher. And so I took that leap of faith and I went there. But after my 2 years, I realized being a teacher was much harder than I expected, that most people probably perceive. And so I then started talking about going to law school again. And at that point, I felt like I had a path forward and that I was going to be doing my own thing in the law, and not criminal defense or insurance defense or civil litigation. I wanted to do school law or education law, which is such a narrow area of the law. And I love what I do. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they did inspire me, but neither of them pushed me to go to law school. They were probably notably silent when I said I was going to apply. I think they wanted me to make my own decision.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting. Usually parents, like every lawyer that I know whose parents has been a lawyer is just sort of expected to follow that path, you know? But yeah, I'm the only lawyer.
Sorry, Dad, I'm going to be a writer producer. No lawyer. I'm going for a real steady career path. Talking to lawyers on a podcast. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. All right. So I'm sure there's so many more stories Jim can tell us on another episode, but these were like fascinating to me. And I wanted to kind of share them with everybody. So thank you to our guest.
It was fun. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Hope. It's great to see
great
you.
Job, Dad.
Yeah,
great job.
By the way, Hope, why can't he just FaceTime you? I don't understand.
We FaceTime on Thanksgiving. He's pretending like he forgot.
Oh, okay. All right.
And he also just got an iPhone.
I know.
Yeah.
Anti-iPhone for a long time.
That's big news in the production world over here. We were all very excited when Jim got an iPhone.
And more green text messages.
Exactly.
Well, I refuse to. I don't like the green thing going on, so I just was not messaging on a regular app. I couldn't deal with it. Anyway, thank you, guest/co-host Jim Griffin. And Hope, thank you so much for giving us the honor. I know you're super busy and you have a little boy, and taking time off on a Sunday is not easy for you. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Hey, Hope, give Sam and Sydney a big kiss for me. And
I will. I kicked them out of the house for this.
No.
Like having a real elf on the shelf at home right now.
And don't let your dad hijack my gift, which was a birthday gift, not a holiday gift for Sydney.
Oh, I'm aware. We're gonna find it under the tree with your name on it.
Let me just throw out before we wrap up. Please subscribe to this podcast if you're not already. It's called The Presumption. We're also on YouTube and all the social media handles, and we are going to be back with some new content for you guys in the next couple weeks. And so until next time, Jim and Sarah.
We rest.
We rest. Yes, we do.